All right. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
How's
Hey
it going?
everyone!
Oh, sorry. There
There
we
we
go.
go.
I love that jingle. Very nice
I
intro.
know.
It gets you in the mood.
Some dude just wrote it
Is
for
it
us.
Paul playing guitar?
It is.
I wrote the jingle. It's out there finally.
I'm not
Check it
surprised.
out. So, Eric,
Cool.
thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I'll introduce Eric. I've known, full disclosure, I've known Eric since we're 25, so I've known him for 5 years.
I wish.
Why are you laughing? So Eric and I used to be sales reps together at a company called Cable and Wireless in the early 90s. Yes, we're old. But he's kept all his hair, bugger. And so I wanted to have Eric on the podcast with us because, one, he's a great salesperson. Two, he's had a really interesting trajectory. And three, he now runs his own, he's partner in his own, I guess it's a financial
Financial firm.
firm,
Nice.
and he'll tell you a little bit more about that when we ask him questions. So thanks very much for joining us, Eric.
My
And
pleasure.
maybe just to break the ice, tell us a little bit about what you do now. Tell us about the company you work at now and what your position is as one of the owners.
Well, I am a financial advisor, fully certified, fully licensed in both insurance and investment. I am now part of the organization that I represent. I'm one of the associates. So there's 3 partners. I'm one of them. And I'm also a VP of business development for the firm, which consists of promoting Coaching Financier Trek, which is our brand, our name. The company will be 20 years old this year in 2021. My partner, Marc Bérubé, the owner and the principal and the fondateur, created the organization 20 years ago when he was simply a financial advisor, but he had a vision. He wanted to create his own business, and today it's a large, fairly large organization that consists of 30 some employees. Half of them are financial advisors, and the other half are coordinators, admin, receptionists. And we have a marketing coordinator. So it's a fairly large firm. Very happy to be part of that.
Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's also your cousin, right, Mark?
He's my cousin. Yeah.
He's been
Nice.
trying to recruit you, I think, for 20 years, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the I gave you the short version, but you're right. Yeah, it took him almost 10 years when I was back in telecom, and the days that I was in sales also, but I was in the telecom industry. I was one of Mark's first customers as his cousin. And for 10 years, he said, Eric, what are you doing? At Rogers, come and join me. And I was looking at him and I was just thinking, he looks like he's having success. He looks like he's having a lot of fun. It's an interesting industry that I didn't know much of. But when I decided to join the ranks after 10 years of him telling me, I think he was just at the end of trying to convince me. It was about time I joined because I think the train would have passed, and that's it. But the timing was right. The timing was right. So
I'm
there
giving up on this guy. I'm dropping him off. But
so
Eric, I want to ask you a couple of questions. So thank you very much for that intro. I think it really puts us in perspective of where you are now. But I've always known you as a great, and I want to talk to you about your salesmanship. I've always known you as a great salesperson. When we first met, you were good. So why sales? When did it start? Like, was it straight out of university? Was it because you didn't know what to do? Like, why'd you head in that direction?
I think it was early in the years when I started my career, and I think it just naturally I was attracted to sales. I've always been in the PR. When I was younger, I was involved in all kinds of groups and things. And my dad actually was a business owner in the clothing industry back in where I'm from in Val d'Or up north.
That's why he looks so sharp.
Well, yeah, I'm not wearing my tie today, but normally I would. But yeah, actually, I was born and raised in an environment where my dad and some other members of the family were involved in sales. So it was a natural step for me to go towards sales, and it happened early in my career because when I graduated from university back in the days in Ottawa, my first job was to repo car. I was working for Ford Credit as a repo man.
Oh man.
So yeah, back in the days I was this big guy, but that was not natural, and that didn't last long. It lasted about 2 years, and then I saw an opportunity for telecom. The market had just been deregulated. Bell was losing its monopoly. I was in Ottawa, and Cable and Wireless, the same firm that Paul was part of, opened an office in Ottawa, and I ended up, applying for the job, got the job, and long story short, here I am. It was always sales since then. So that's 1990, 91, 92,
Okay, so
maybe.
there's another thing I want to touch, Eric. So I know you did telecom as a salesperson till what, the late 90s, early 2000s?
It was telecom, Paul, as in a sales position until the late 90s, and then after it was still sales, but as a manager, as a director, and yeah.
So,
but finance, I left Rogers in 2013. So still sales as a financial advisor, but that's 7 years in my career and 19 years in telecom.
Fab, I'm only going to hog one more question, then I'll let you jump in. So, Eric, something else that I find fascinating, and I know we sort of, because Eric and I wouldn't say we lost touch, but we weren't talking as much. At one point, I went into broadcast. He stayed in telecom. We'd talk every couple of years. We'd go have lunch, and he'd show me all the nice new toys he bought that I should have stayed in telecom for more than I was. You see that face? Listeners, he just made that face. Anyhow, so all that to say that Eric grew in the ranks of Rogers, and we met again when I came to Rogers. So that's really, I came in through the media door, and he was a leader on the telecom side. And then Eric at one point decided he left Rogers. He left a great job, a great gig to start his own business, basically. And Eric, I want to know, if you don't mind, tell us the mindset of you going from a large 33,000 employee corporation to, holy shit, I work for myself.
Well, it's the transition happened quite easily. I think I was just, when I said earlier, it was the right timing for me to leave. It was the right timing for me to do something else and to change completely my environment. And it took me maybe a good 6 months to a year before I finally announced that I was leaving Rogers. So I guess I made myself aware that the environment I would end up being into would be Eric Tremblay Inc. It would not consist of 30,000 employees or 100 people surrounding me all the time. So it was quite refreshing, and it happened so quickly. And I think I have this capacity to adapt quickly, as long as I know that I'm in the right environment. And for me, it was going back to pure sales, and that's what I love. So the rest for me was just not done at issue. It was not a problem. It was just Eric Tremblay focusing on customers and making a difference in their lives at the end of the day.
Cool. If I can jump in, I do have a question though. Because another transition was going from so one transition was going from large to small, but the other was you also changed industries, right? Like you went to financial services. How do you adapt to that? Because from the outside, it looks like a big switch in terms of industry.
And I'm still adapting because it is. I mean, it was a big step. You're right. I mean, it was still a sales environment, meeting people. And like I said, going back to one-on-one meetings with people, which I missed the most when I was in the manager or director position. So going back to the people was the main thing. But you're right. Learning that new environment, I mean, finance and insurance is a completely different industry, highly regulated, requires a lot of rigor. You need to make sure that you're on top of your game all the time. So I was drinking from the fire hose. I mean, from the day I jumped in this industry until just recently, just to make sure that I'm on top of my game and I stay on top of my game. So it is, highly regulated. Like I said earlier, so a lot of changes from the fiscal point of view or from the insurance point of view. So you need to make sure that you're well surrounded, that you have a good team of people. That you learn every day. And earlier today, I was on another, training session, virtual training session, which is a good thing now because it's much easier to learn online than perhaps in the previous years before the pandemic, where it was more going to this convention and this and that. So But yeah, the step from telecom to finance and insurance was a big one, but it's quite refreshing. And that's what I needed the most. I mean, still being in front of people, making a difference in their lives, but rather than using technology, now it's more finance and insurance.
And Eric, it's interesting because you say there's a lot. So when you go in the financial world, obviously you have to take your Canadian securities classes, and you have to have all the certifications, right? You can't just walk into the industry and start selling stuff. So
no,
exactly. It is very regulated.
It is. And
so what is similar? So I know that when you sell telecom to an enterprise, right? Because you were more at the enterprise level, you were selling to big companies. What stayed the same? What part of sales stayed the same? What would you say were the things that you used to do, like right from the start, that you still do now that are valid? Like maybe a few things that make Eric Tremblay a good salesperson.
Yeah, well, I learned maybe through the hard way when I was in telecom, but I learned soon enough that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listening to the customer is the basis, and finding that root cause analysis. Why are we here? And the why is very important. So whether it is in telecom and you meet with an organization the size of an Air Canada or Bombardier, and you're trying to understand how can we address their telecom needs, and you're surrounded with engineers and all kinds of people around the table and trying to assess what is the problem, how can we provide a solution to that situation. It's the same today with either business users, business owners rather, or professional. You sit down with them, you listen carefully, trying to seize where they want to go and how we can coach them, which comes from coaching Trek, to attain that objective, whether it's retirement, whether they have a situation we need to fix quickly. This is by listening and, again, being well surrounded. So I'll either use lawyers, accountant, or fiscalists to have that plan laid out for them that we can execute upon, and it's solid, and then end up meeting the customer requirement and making a difference in their lives, whether it's a business or an individual.
Very interesting. Fab, go, because I've got a million questions, and I'm just faster than Fab, so I'm gonna bite my tongue so I can let him ask a question. So I'm biting my tongue, Fab.
I'll put my marketing hat on for a bit, and I'm just wondering, where in the financial space, where do you get potential clients from? So we know where you get clients from. You listen to them and you try to see if you can adjust their needs, but where do you get the potential clients from?
Yeah. So when I started the business, and Paul would testify to that, I was all over the place. I was so afraid of not succeeding in that business that I was all over the place. So I draw a list of all my contacts. I use LinkedIn, and I think I contacted every single one of them, except for a couple I just didn't feel like doing business with, let's say. But there was just a couple of them. And so Paul ended up being on that list. And Paul is today a customer of mine. So I'm very pleased with that. And Paul, actually, one of the rare person that came forward to me and said, Eric, when you're in the business, let's talk. I'd like to do business with you. So, I mean, that was, to me, when I started, it was just a breath of fresh air to know that I could rely on some people that, I could start building my business upon. So I guess my network and the references that I did get from that network also helped me build that funnel and nourish that sales development and activity. So, of course, the mouth to ear rather, and understanding also how I can get to other people through my network was very important.
So that's his technique. He just said mouth to mouth.
Mouth to mouth.
There you go.
That's his marketing technique.
Cat is out of the bag.
Certain clientele, maybe, but on a weekly average, I mean, there are, not in the last year because of the pandemic, but all these souper de fondation, gala, or all kinds of events that I could participate in and meet people. So, I mean, and you're your own marketing. At the end of the day, yes, there is a firm called Coaching Financier Trek, but I mean, people don't buy necessarily from the brand. I think they buy from Eric Tremblay.
So, Eric, so what you're saying is that it's events, it's references, and it's also some social media.
Wait.
So like, how's that changed? So at the beginning, you said, you reached out to everyone on LinkedIn, right? And then you do some word of mouth. So like today, is it more events, or is it sort of the same flow, but it sort of rolls over itself?
It's a mix. And in the last year, the social networks have been a way of reaching out to our people and navigating this big sphere, because we see that there is value being out there and create awareness, not necessarily to acquire a customer, but at least for the notoriety, and then make sure that we are visible out there. But it's a mix, I would say, Paul. It's a mix of, getting some references from existing people. It's a mix also of being involved in organizations like Corporate Connection that allows me to meet other business owners, and which is 80% of my customers are business owners like myself, like yourselves, so, or travailleurs autonomes, or business owners. And a mix of that. And of course, we do our own activities online, whether we have a special guest speaker, or we had a dégustation de vin recently with a sommelier and a producer, a little 5 à 7. So we're trying to find ways to reach out to the people, be different also. A lot of cycling, like in my DNA, I do a lot of sports. I do a lot of cycling, sorry, and cross-country skiing. And through these activities, I'll also generate opportunities to go for a bike ride with a group of people, and have them bring people, go to a hockey game, have dinner before the game, and go out and watch a game, tennis, Coupe Rogers. So
Eric, I have to interrupt you there, Fab, and I want your input on this, Fab, because I remember when Eric first invited me to a cycling event.
Yeah.
It was very. I remember thinking, "Wow, this is so out of the box. It's so different. It's not something you would expect, right?" And I remember thinking, "Do you see this in other industries as well, Fab? Like in your marketing clients, or do people sort of say to more traditional events?" Because I found that really, really, really original.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard about cycling events because I have a friend also in the financial space, and he was saying it's like it's a hot thing. I mean, this is a few years ago, so it's the hot thing. I think for in the marketing space, not as much. Like in marketing, you tend to try to go larger and try to get more people, and so cycling is kind of very local, obviously. But so yeah, purely marketing is like I haven't seen it too much, but I've heard about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
We embrace the fact that cycling is the new golf kind of thing. The golf tournaments, of course, there's always, but when you do it, or you just go play around a golf with a small group. But we realized that a lot of people were jumping on the cycling sport and activity. And for me, it was way more natural cycling than golfing. You should see that. You would totally understand. So it was natural for us to go towards cycling and have special guests there. And yes, Paul, you did in fact participate in one of the events that we had created.
Well, you see, what I find interesting is that what I like about this, Fab, and I want your opinion. By the way, Fab, your video seems to be frozen, so we don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to fix it at the same time.
Okay. So one thing that I find interesting is that, and I know Fab said this to me in the past, do what you like, right? Do the things you like and bring the people that way. Try to attract them that way. So I find that very fascinating. So, you like cycling, so you bring your clients, and you'll find clients in that field, and you bring them forward. So I find that very fascinating. Now, Eric, there's one thing that, and you talked about it before, you talked about, finding the root cause and, having 2 years and listening. And what I find fascinating, and, as you know, I'm a sales trainer, and I think you do this very well, is that it doesn't matter what industry you're in. The good salespeople know how to ask the questions to find out what their clients need, right? And Fab and I have talked about this a lot. We've done a lot of podcasts on this, on asking open questions. And I find, and the reason I wanted to have you on is because you're sort of the epitome of that good salesperson, right? So you sold credit or whatever it was. You were at Ford Credit, which is, pretty rough, whatnot. Then you went into telecom, and now you're in finance. But really, probably the the commonality through all of that is you probably were always listening to your client or your potential client. You're always saying, okay, what is it that I can do for them, right? I mean, I don't know. I think this comes naturally to you. And I find that interesting. One thing I wanted to ask you sales-wise is, when you're in an industry like yours and you work for yourself, how do you decide how much prospecting you're going to do? How do you decide how much work to put into it? And if you have to attach a percentage to it, how much of your time is spent looking out for new clients?
It's a very good question. First, I'll just go back on your first portion about being natural. There's many books out there that talks about and relates about techniques, to have open-ended questions or closed-ended question and try to navigate the customer. I mean, I'm not like that at all, Paul, and you know that. I genuinely care. And if I'm in front of someone that is looking for advice, whether it was telecom or it is financial, I'll give my best. And if I don't have an answer, I'll make sure I find the professional to answer that question. So to me, it's genuinely caring is very important. And then it gets you into this closer rapport with your potential customer, and they'll understand that you're there for the right reason just by asking the right regions, because fundamentally you care. You're not asking the question because you read it in a book. Okay, now I should ask that kind of question to bring it to, closer to the close.
But am I right in saying, though, that just on that point, you sell something, you sell life insurance, you sell financial stability, you sell something that's very important to the individual. But think back to when you were selling a product that was not essential to someone's survival. I mean, isn't it harder to have more caring there? Doesn't it become more of I've got a job to do and I've got to help my clients? It's less of a life choice in that situation. I don't know.
I think you bring a very valid point, Paul. I mean, if it depends what you're selling. You're right. At the end of the day, and perhaps telecom, that particular skill of mine or the natural empathy or my way of connecting with people was not as much of an asset that perhaps it is today. But then again, I say that, but when you were in front of a VP of a bank and they were looking for bottom line results and they knew that they could count on you because you were there for the right reasons in their telecom budget, let's say, well, I think that they could feel that genuinely we're trying to achieve that for them. But depending, I guess, on what it is that you're catering and to what community, perhaps this way of communicating doesn't come as important or than perhaps other business.
Well, and what I realize with you is that, I mean, you are asking open-ended questions. You are asking questions to find out what the need is. Yes, because you care, but you do ask the questions, right?
I'm curious.
Yeah, you're curious.
Fundamentally curious.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and remember in our earlier days when we were at Cable and Wireless, there was a lot less. There was a lot less questioning in finding out the client's needs. We got to it quickly, and we'd quickly get to selling the company. And I want to ask you that question because this is something I've noticed in my career is that, 30 years ago when I started, the internet it was there, but it didn't really exist. So the only way people would find out about you was from the salesperson's mouth. So you had to describe what was going on. So you really had to have a good sales pitch. Today, I think a good salesperson finds out about his client because a lot of that information is out there. It's very rare that you'll meet someone to talk to them about a product that they can't research or go look online. So what you're trying to do is help them dig into what their needs are. And I think you need a lot more of that today than you do at being a great presenter, right?
Yes and no. And you know what? It's funny because you bring me back to this 7 steps of the sales from Cable and Wireless.
Yeah.
And I think step 4 was selling the company. And we had this big book where you could show Cable and Wireless being in all the countries with all the little flags. And but to create that rapport with the potential customer, I remember not falling for that trophy on the wall, or I don't know, whatever that diploma he had hanging back. Those were the easy trap to fall into and ask about. Same idea with the internet, Paul. I'm sure that people, if they're meeting someone and they go on the internet, then they find the low-hanging fruit. If they go for that, the other person. So by being genuinely curious and asking fundamental questions other than what's on the internet or hanging on their wall in their office, I think, but I agree with you. It's much easier, but you can be very lazy with the internet. But just by doing quick research, and then you engage with the customer and you touch upon those. Cliche, in my opinion. I hear that, like, people that are selling to me today, I know they've done their homework, they've gone on the internet.
But it feels fake sometimes.
Sometimes it's, that's the obvious. Please go for something a little bit more, or ask me. Ask me specifically.
Well, that's it's interesting, Eric, because I got this someone tried to connect with me on LinkedIn last week and says, hey, it looks like you're doing some interesting work. Let's connect. And I'm like, oh God, there's some really cheesy stuff. Okay, Fab, I hogged the questions again. I'm shutting up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sorry, I'm having technical problems on my
you're
side.
Back now. We see you move. You're no longer frozen in this position.
But that's fine. On your side, on my side, you're still frozen, so I can't see what you guys are doing. I'm about to say, but I really like what you were saying, Eric, because as I'm getting more and more into the sales world, thanks to Paul and thanks to having started my own thing, you're right. Like, the internet can make salespeople a lot lazier because there's just so much information out there that it's easy to try to formulate something. And so, like, how would you say that? What's the best way? I mean, there's curiosity, but curiosity seems maybe a bit broad. Like, how do you try to get your advisors to truly go beyond what they can find online, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, the way that the organization function is, a lot of training is done on the product, the knowledge of the product, just to make sure that we can meet the customer's needs. When it comes to sales training, there isn't as much of that part of the training that we have in place that I believe we should. But when you look at, I'm sorry?
I said, we can help you with that.
I know you guys can, and we had discussed that. But in true fairness, I think, we use the product training to make sure that we have up to speed financial advisors. We use the technology to make sure that we have the right CRM tool in place. But when it comes to the sales skills, I with my 6-7 years now at Trek, I did have many opportunities to present and share my experience to the financial advisors and share some of the do's and some of the don'ts. But I think that we are now at a level where we need to motivate the troops through sales training, and I think it can be highly motivating to do that, because you can use that every day. You can use it the moment that you're done with your training. It's something that you can apply and execute upon right away, and that can be motivating and refreshing. So I think we're there, actually, and I don't think we have honestly done a good job of that.
Well, that's interesting though, Eric, because what you see, is this something that's common in the financial industry, where people really focus on learning the technical aspect of the product? And if you don't, and I know you're a natural and you've got great talent, you've been in the industry a long time, but someone who's less of a natural might have a hard time getting his message out there, even though they're an expert. Am I correct?
Yeah, you are. And in fact, when you start in the career, like I said, it's a highly regulated business. So l'autorité des marchés financiers is where you conduct your exams, and there's la Chambre de sécurité financière, which you need to be part of. Everything's oriented towards making sure that you are compliant, right? That you are a professional. And then there's the training to make sure you're updated. And then there's a change of law, and there's the fiscal reform. And then suddenly the sales aspect, transactional aspect of how you navigate with the customer through all these, you kind of lose touch of that because you just want to make sure that you are compliant, let's say. And this is the number one thing in our business that we need to be good at. But then, there's always when I think of sales, I think also of customer service. It's not just selling something; it's the post sale, just making sure that you have a happy customer at the end of the day or at the end of the year, whenever you revisit them. So I think that the sales aspect of our business, yes, Paul, it's not necessarily, in many other organizations like ours, a big focus right now.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but you're kind of limited too. Like if you wanted to start a podcast, you can't just talk about anything, right? You're quite limited on what you can talk about and how you promote your products. Am I correct?
Absolutely. So there are many things that, when I joined the ranks of Trek and I first became a financial advisor, I had all kinds of ideas about promoting this and doing a draw for that, or sharing compensation with, let's say, a real estate agent or whatever. And then, no, you can't do that. You can't do that's not, no, you have to ask you that it became so difficult because it is a very highly regulated industry. I won't say it enough, but that it limits you in terms of what you can do to promote sales and do activities that could attract customers. But if we go back, I'm not going to name names, but there has been some serious in our industry abuse and fraud that the system went from one extreme to another, and now
like the Bernie Madoffs of this world, right?
Or even closer to us in Quebec, the Vincent Lacroix. With the Scandale Norbeau, and others. So it became very, very restrained and organized and structured in a way that it limits you from certain sales activities or marketing, and you have to validate. And if you want to validate, you're not sure, then it takes, and then you lose track. You lose, the spirit of doing it and having an event.
So marketing essentially is very limited then. So I mean, I guess Fab, this is something that it's sort of like if I had to compare it, it's probably like advertising in the pharma world in Canada. You can't. You're very, very limited as to what you can do.
Yeah, it's a good comparison. I think there is some opportunities where we can promote certain things at certain periods, and it's all legit and it's all good. But it's very limited. Like you can talk about something, but please don't read the small print, because there's so many things that you need to consider. So a lot of organizations choose not to go there because it's very difficult to respect if you want the compliancy aspect of it.
That's interesting though, but I see that there could be some opportunity to maybe not talking about your services, but maybe more talking about what matters overall to your target market, like having a conversation with business owners and what's going on in their mind, whether that means hiring people or whatnot. So it's less about talking about your services, but more talking about what your target market cares about.
And our business is it gets very personal when you talk about someone's portfolio or you talk about life insurance. So it's really where we make a big difference, and a typical agenda for me to attract potential customers is to have an activity, whether it's cycling, it could be golfing, it could be an event, and you gather these people together. You have a mix of customers and a mix of prospect. They mingle, and you create that opportunity also for them to network among themselves. And then it becomes naturally that people see you, your customers that are there are your sharpest and best ambassadors. They'll talk about you and your customer of Eric or Trek. No, and then by doing that, then it leads you to another meeting, which is more likely a one-on-one. It's either through lunch, breakfast, or the Zoom, Teams, whatever you call it, of this world, and then you engage in a more personal way. So social network, like I said earlier, or these massive campaigns are destined more for its publicity, just a brand awareness. And yes, we will address it to the right community. Like I said, for myself, it's business owners. So
Right.
I need to make sure that I tailor my message or my language or the way that if I read about my business, I'll make sure that it is a business owner environment that I read it so that I can relate to their environment, and then we can create rapport, and then I can talk about my business. So it's very specific. So it's tailored, it's personalized, it's customized. It's not that large, big cookie cutter type. That there would be some of that. We have a vertical market where we cater to the doctors and the students, the medicine students that are in their last years. Then it's maybe a little bit more, cookie cutter, I'll say, because they all have the same sort of, they're all in the same business. They can incorporate themselves today, but in the health industry. So there's 3 or 4 products that we use for them that are the same, whether it is a young doctor or an older one.
I have 2 questions that come to mind because I see we're of course you see this goes way faster than you thought, Eric. So
yes. We're having fun.
Yes, we are. I have 2 questions for you, Eric. One is, what's your advice to someone, let's say a young person or someone who's thinking of going into this industry? What would you say to them? What do they need to do to make sure that they're the right person for this industry? And 2, it's a plug, but not really a plug. But what would you suggest to the listeners out there who are considering insurance or whatnot? What do they need to be thinking of? So what are the things? What should they be looking out for when they're thinking of buying insurance or investing in a certain way? So the first one, the person coming into your industry, what do they need, and what should they be thinking of? Like, what kind of person should they be to jump into this industry?
So a specific candidate for our business, Paul, would be someone that is independent. Not financially independent, but what I mean by independence is they don't need to have the tap on the shoulder every Monday morning, or they need to be independent, and structured, disciplined, professional. They need to care also, because we cater a product that is destined for years to come in events of health problems or for retirement. So you fundamentally need to care. Those that are the fly-by-nights, that they've had huge success in their first couple of years, most of the time you don't see them. They're not around anymore because they're not there for the right reason. They're there for the quick buck. But someone that is disciplined, someone that is looking for a long-term career, and those that we see in our industry today that are made a name for themselves, and they're well known in our industry. They're 70 years old today, 75 years old, and they still do what they do because they fundamentally care, and were there for their customers 75 years ago, and they're still there today. It's amazing, right? So the profile, and we are currently hiring at Coaching Tech. We are looking for these special candidates and this little nugget of people that want to join our ranks. But if they're too young, if they just graduated from university and they do this, they need to be they need to have that tap on the shoulder. So the people that we attract at Trek sometimes are people that they've already had a career in another industry, most of the time sales, or they were already a financial advisor and they just joined the ranks of Trek. So this is the typical, and someone that's motivated. When I said the tap on the shoulder, sometimes someone that truly is motivation intrinsèque, that it's inside of it, that
Intrinsic
really is there for the And what was the second point, Paul? Sorry,
let's say I don't know, Fab or I, or we're all over the place. Like, what's a piece of advice that you give to the average person who's considering buying these services? Like, what do they? And I don't mean your company specifically, but as an individual, like, who do you look out for? How do you know this person's going to be a good advisor, right? How do you know that they're going to sell you the right tools? Like, what is it that you, as a consumer, as a consumer that needs to be aware of what to look for, what should they be looking for?
You know what? I think it's a very good question, Paul, because in my role consists of a lot of education. And I'm not gonna generalize, but there are a lot of people, let's say in Quebec, that have this pensée magique and they don't necessarily take the time to draw a plan and make sure they execute upon it. Sure, they'll have some RRSPs and they'll have a TFSA and, they'll have a little bit of this and that, but the education piece is where I come into play for people like you, and we sit down and we measure where you're at today and where you want to be in 20 years, 25 years from now when you're thinking of retiring. And then we do quick math. And then that's when people in that process realize, whoa, either they've done a great job and they're on track already and they congratulations, maybe we can do better. But most of the time, though, that people are not necessarily on track.
But what I mean, Eric, though, is like you came to me, I trusted you, I knew you for 20 years. So it was an easy gambit, right? But let's say for the average consumer, what does he look for in this person? Let's say someone walks up to him. Yes, they should know what they're talking about, but how do you know that they know what they're talking about? Like, am I looking for some kind of certification? Am I looking for some kind of experience? Am I looking for a specific name on the brand? Yes, they have to draw a plan, but you could be a charlatan that draws a plan, right? So
and there is the first thing people should do if they have doubts or they just want to validate is they can just type their name at the l'AMF and they'll see if these financial advisors have had some complaints or if they've had past issues.
Whatever the board, so l'AMF is the one in Quebec.
So they register all the plaints and if people really want to make sure that, first of all, that he is a fully certified financial advisor, they can go type their name at l'AMF and they'll see if they are, first of all, certified.
And you can see what the complaints were and what.
If there were 5 complaints and those that actually have not been sort of fixed, but those that actually made if you want, like a check on their career. But at the end of the day, Paul, I think that the fundamental thing is that trust that we talked about earlier. And when you came to me up front, it's because you trusted me anyways. And you knew that if I was going to handle your insurance or your wallet, or at the end of the day, you trusted Eric because you had been working for many, many years. But then you become a good ambassador of Eric Tremblay, and you have also referred me potential customer that have become customers also. So what I'm saying is what people should look into to answer your question. Well, they should make sure that these people are solid, and checking with the AMF is one thing, but also do they have references? Most of the time they will, and they might know someone that knows someone, or sometimes it's someone that already have introduced that financial individual to. So if you trust that person, then by extension, most of the people, and I conduct my business like that, most of my customers come through references because the people that I've done business with, they trust me. Now that they're introducing me to new people, they trust them by,
references are important. So, okay, that makes, so references and knowing the people and whatnot. Hey guys, we're gonna have to wrap this up. This is too much fun. But, but Eric, thank you very, very much. It was really enjoyable. I learned a little bit about the financial business. I knew a lot about you, and I wanted to introduce you to our clients. This is what a natural, caring individual who wants to help his clients sounds like, and this is how his career path has been. So again, Eric, I really want to thank you for joining Fab and I today. It was a very interesting and fun session.
Likewise, gentlemen. It was fun, and thanks for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Eric.